For example, Douglas Murray.
Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, the polling people and asking them if they sense moral decline, I don't think you could ever take a poll anywhere at any point in our history where people thought they were in moral ascent. It just doesn't happen. Everything's always getting worse. That's the nature of human feeling.
Yeah. So, Richard Dawkins, are you worried at all by some of the social attitudes that come into this country?
I'm worried about some of the social attitudes I've heard in this hall tonight.
This morning?
Sorry, this morning. It's all dark in here. I'm worried when somebody sitting next to a well-known gay activist says, "I believe that you had a mother," and gets a round of applause. Now, that's bigotry, and I'm worried about that.
I'm surprised you are worried about that. We are debating, and it's a very intelligent man. He made a statement earlier on about why different religions are not tolerated.
You justified it on biblical grounds.
Let me answer you, sir.
You justified it on biblical grounds.
Because in here, there are people that will believe in what we will all get applaud one way or another in what somebody else is saying. He was given birth to by a woman. It was his choice to be gay, whether it was something that he inherited or not. That is what I believe. I believe that to be the truth. And so I don't personally believe that two men should live together or two women should be. That is my belief, and I stand by that.
I don't care what you personally believe.
Stand by that, and I stand by that.
I don't think it's of much interest what you or anybody else personally believes.
Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion.
The question is, what is the evidence?
Yeah.
And there is no evidence that, as you say, you have a choice about being gay or not. You justified what you said on biblical grounds, which sounds awfully much to me like forcing your views upon other people.
I guess what this comes down to. Hang on, now let's not get sidetracked too much on this. But what this interestingly comes down to is the focus on the contention, Rabbi Shaikh, that godly people are necessarily better people. Is that necessarily the case?
Not necessarily the case, no. You don't have to be a godly person in order to be a good person. What needs to be put in perspective, and I think we're all deluding ourselves, is the fact that no one faith has the right to impose its value system on its society. Every faith has broader values that can certainly be adopted by society. The cardinal sins, idolatry, worship of materialism today, adultery, the breakdown of family, murder in its very real sense are as rampant today as before. Immigration is making no impact on society.
Is it challenging in any sense the consensus of liberalism with a small L that we have in this country? Tolerance and liberalism. Is that in any way challenged by immigration?
To a degree, it probably is, but only insofar as where certain societies look to impose their value system on broader society. What I choose to believe, what she chooses to believe, and Peter is prepared to accept her right to believe that, is fair enough. But if she's trying to try and impose that on mainstream society, that's fundamentally flawed. The real problem, let me just conclude with one point. The real issue is, it's not immigration that's impacting society. I think immigrants themselves are losing their value systems and being influenced by society.
Councillor Alan King. Yasmin in a second. Councillor. It behoves me at this point to say, for reasons of rules and regulations, you are one of 10 candidates standing for the position of Mayor of London. Carry on.
Thank you very much. Get Ken Livingstone out, that's what I do. I think what we see here is what we heard from Professor Dawkins, that extraordinary arrogance, that if you have some views different from his, your views are not acceptable. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as a vacuum. There are therefore values in the public sphere. The question is whether you have the lady here, the Pentecostal evangelical, with whom I would identify and encourage her to speak up, or you get the arrogance that says her views are not valid. Actually, there have to be some views out there. The question is, can we live together? Can we tolerate each other? Not write one another out like Professor Dawkins was trying to do. She's absolutely entitled to her views.
Tolerance and freedom of speech we will come on to, and the right to offend, but surely all our views are valid, aren't they?
No, not necessarily. It depends on the evidence. She made a factual statement about the upbringing of gays and about whether gay people are free to change their minds or not. That is a factual statement. There is evidence bearing on it. That means that personal opinion, which is not informed by evidence, is not of interest.
Yasmin, you've written this fascinating book about...
Well, it certainly looks like Richard Dawkins, Professor Dawkins, has brought his A game. Wow. He doesn't hold anything back either, does he? He just goes right straight in for that. And listen, this is what makes people like Richard Dawkins, the professor, you know, seem to be so arrogant. I mean, he is arrogant. as if nobody else's opinion matters. Oh, but the science. Oh, but it's been proven. Nothing has been proven. They talk about this gauging that they found. They didn't find anything. Hasn't been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a lifestyle change. A lifestyle, people make choices all the freaking time, but they don't want to take control of their choices. So what do? They say, well, that's just the way it is. Transgenders use the same thing. I was made this way. I was born this way. That lady has an opinion. You may not like her opinion, but she can express her opinion. I've got an opinion. You may like it. You may not. Professor Dawkins has an opinion. I don't like a lot of his opinions. I don't like a lot of his bloviating. But that's just the way it is. But I respect his right. I defend his right to have those opinions. But I wouldn't say, no, you don't have a right to your opinion, which is exactly what he's saying. Even if something is factually wrong, I believe somebody's fact, if you can prove by 2 + 2 = 4, someone says 2 + 2 = 5, that's what they believe. Okay, they believe that. They may be a little bit, let's just say, that they're idiotic. But that's my opinion. They may feel they're not idiotic. But most of society is going to tell them and say, no, 2 + 2 = 4. Now, they can either accept that and live with society, or they can not accept it and say, you know what, I'll go my own way. But the fact of the matter is, everybody is entitled to have their opinion. Now, they say you're entitled to your feelings, but not your own facts. Or you can have your feelings, but you can't have your facts. Or you better have your facts, but you can't have your feelings. All this stuff is just sort of out there in the ether, in the ethos. But the fact of the matter is, we can disagree with somebody really, really strongly. But at the very end of the thing, they've got an opinion. And now the question becomes is, where is society going to fall on those opinions? And where does society want to go in terms of those things? That's the question, okay, that needs to be answered. In which direction will society move? The societal change, where will that take? That's the question to be asked. Anyways, folks, we appreciate we're going to get back to the video. But this is what we have on tap for you today, folks. You're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, where I give you my political prescription from my political perspective on what happens when all these things come colliding together. Professor Richard Dawkins, Douglas Murray, the people on Question Time, culture, religion, morality, immorality. All this comes crashing together. Let's get back to the interview with Dawkins right now.
This country your parents came from, remind me where they came from?
Pakistan.
Pakistan. Do you discern a danger that we are stepping back in time, in a sense, with some of the attitudes being brought into this country?
Okay, before I go on to that, I have a real problem with discussions like this. We're talking about Britain's moral decline, and then we're looking at it through the prism of immigration. And we're totally distracting ourselves from the real problem, okay, but what Britain is today. And there is a problem. We're not looking at the kind of pressures, the fact that life has got more complex. Mm-hmm. Of course, immigrants bring a lot of good values to this country. Who are immigrants? They're often the most kind of ambitious, entrepreneurial, creative people in their societies who come over here. Mm-hmm. But at some point, immigrants stop being immigrants and they have to become citizens.
I wouldn't say that. There's a lot of that immigrants that are coming over there, but a lot of immigrants, economic migrants, economic immigrants, those that are coming here illegally, many of them from a lot of countries. They're not we're not talking about the most entrepreneurial. We're not talking about the ones that are at the higher achievement levels, at the higher academic levels. That's just not true at all. The majority of immigrants, the majority of migrants, the majority of them, either for economic reasons or safety reasons or religious persecution reasons, they are the ones that are coming over to Western Europe and other places, but they are not usually, okay, in terms of what they're talking about. They're not they're not the upper elite crust. They're not the most educated. Now, they do have those factors. They do want something better for themselves, which is why they're leaving. which is a good thing in of itself, where no one's doubting that. But for this lady to say that the majority of them are coming, that's not the case at all.
And that's when a new whole ball game starts. And now we're talking about a situation where, okay, what kind of society are we going to build? How are we going to keep cohesive with a different value system? Now, immigrants some of them are socially conservative. If you go back to the countries they came from, you'll find a lot of progressive people. There's good and bad everywhere. So I think let's stop talking about immigration as some sort of way of looking at this issue of moral decline, and let's look at sort of what Britain has become today and why we've got people like Shannon Matthews cases and this low self-esteem amongst...
Although, to be fair, the question was posed in a very positive sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't a negative take on immigration.
No, sure, I understand.
It was taking it from a very positive point of view. Thank you for that, Yasmin. Thank you all very much for those contributions with our interesting sideline between Betty and Richard on the way through. As ever, the debate continues on our message board. Just log on.
Well, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for taking the time to watch. You've been watching, as I said, the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir. We'd love you to subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You all know what to do. My final thought is always, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.